life gives you blows and difficulties, you take that suffering, so raw energy, and you turn it into an immortal soul. You become hyper-conscious, hyper-awake through suffering. Suffering is set out to wake up manifestation. Whenever our actions or attitudes, the way we position ourselves in front of life, go out of track, whether it is because we are attached, we are selfish, we lack love, we lack awareness, we are lazy, anything that is off, yeah? If we see ourselves as cells in the big wholeness of creation, whenever what we do is not aligned with our role in the whole body of the universe, suffering appears. Yeah, it is inevitable. If we suffer, always, something in our attitude is not completely aligned, or sometimes very, very far. So suffering draws our attention to see what needs to be corrected. And the correction will involve an inner transformation. We gave this example of pride before. When we are proud, something, life circumstance will show us that we are not as inflated as we thought we were. It's inevitable. If we have the attitude of pride, life will make fun of us. Life will humiliate us. Yeah, it's not. If you are a duck and you walk like a peacock, eventually it will become funny. It's inevitable. Yeah, it's just part of being a duck that pretends to be a peacock. A few people will follow and believe you are a peacock, but somebody will not. And then let's say the shell of pride that we created and we are protecting will be hit. And because it is fake, it's false, it will be devastating. So pride will attract inevitably pain. And same with selfishness, for example. If you are selfish, and let's face it, we all are, and let's face it, we all suffer. If you are selfish, eventually, and sometimes very quickly, that selfishness will draw suffering. Yeah, because if you have 5 selfish people that believe they should receive a little bit more of the cake than everyone because it's me, I need to receive a little bit more because it's me, none of them not all 5 of them can receive more than the others. Some will receive a bit more, some will receive less, and if you continue repeating this scenario with many cakes and many different situations, you will for sure feel screwed over here and there. Or people will resent you and then the resentment will hurt you, and so forth. So the universe is built so every wrong attitude will sooner or later give birth to suffering. Now, if we are ready for the process of transformation, the universe says, hey, pride, pain, suffering, wake up, be humble. And we say, oh yeah, okay. And we become humble, the suffering stops. What do I care if people, I'm a duck. I'm a duck, I'm not a peacock. What do I care that they don't think I'm a peacock? I don't care because I'm not a peacock, I'm a duck. What? There's room in this world for ducks, and I'm a duck. And that's it. It's done. You don't hold on to the peacock. And because of that, you are fine. People say, haha, you're not a peacock. Yeah, I know. And I'm fine with that. So if you allow the process of transformation to take place, you just transform. And you become different and fresh through that process of transformation. But these cases are actually rare. Most people want to hold their particular personality. You know, a place where it's common, where people are open to just take the feedback, take a little bit of pain and be transformed, is when you start in a new workplace, for example. You did something, it was wrong, people come and say, hey, you did this wrong. It's your first day, we understand, but this is not how we do things here. And then you're like, oh, okay. So how should I? Okay, you do it in that way. Okay, that way, with that attitude. That way, with that attitude. Fine. And then you do it that way with that attitude because it's your first day, first week, first month of work, and that's fine. You receive the feedback, you suffer a bit, you transform, you are reborn into that work. But the common case is that our personality doesn't want to transform. And then we have to, 10 years now we are working, and somebody tells us, no, it's not the correct way of working. And we can't hear it, because we're already established. What do you mean? I'm a peacock. I'm a peacock, I want to stay proud. And then the suffering which comes to cut the feathers of the peacock and leave the duck, leave what you really are, or the suffering that comes with the medicine to cure you, and in the process drop some fake things out of you, have you die and reborn in a new way, humble or less selfish, less attached. The suffering that comes to reprogram you, to reshuffle you, is met with resistance. The personality says, I will stay the same. Let me have it, suffering. Let's fight. Yeah? And then the personality fights with the suffering. You enter a relationship, for example, very common, suffering. We suffer because we have attachments in relationships, so much. You enter a relationship, you love, hopefully, very good. Love itself, fine. Love to infinity will never cause you any suffering. Love itself. But then with the love, you want security. You want to secure the love. You get attached. How do you secure the love? You cut the wings of your lover. Cut the wings. Put them in a box. Like, this is secure. I hold my lover in a leash because I love them so much. I don't want them to disappear or run away or anything. Yeah? Very bad attitude, attachment, possessiveness, all the things that come with love. And then suffering comes, it doesn't come to cut the love, it comes to cut the possessiveness, it comes to cut the attachment. And then we hold on and says, no, don't cut my possessiveness. I want to keep them secure. It just wants to cut the leash so that you don't hold them by the neck with your leash. It's trying to cut that, not the love. But we resist that, and then there is a showdown. The suffering with its impulse, clear the attachment, clear the possessiveness, whatever you have there, or clear the pride, clear the selfishness, and us with our personality, you will not enter here. And then suffering has a universal momentum. It will not stop. It will not give up. And sometimes it's ruthless. And our personality has its power from our power of identification. We say, it's me. I will continue to be selfish and pride and possessive and attached. Watch me. I will secure this love. And then suffering continues. And instead of suffering for half a day or for a week, we can suffer for 5 years, for 10 years, for 100 years, for 100 lives. That's what it's about. Like, this suffering perpetuates and we stay the same. We stay ignorant and we keep the suffering away. Now, what to do in such situations? Essentially, we aim to keep our personality flexible. Most people do this one fundamental mistake, that they identify with their traits. You identify with being patient or impatient, with being pride or humble, with being very intelligent or being very, this is how I say things, this is my sense of humor, this is my personality, and so forth. And we confuse who we are with our functions. We confuse who we are with how we play out now. And then we feel, if my personality will change, I will die, it's me. No, what you are is far deeper than your personality. Yeah, according to all spiritual traditions, what you really are is way, way beyond your personality. The personality is just your mask. Persona means mask. It's just your mask for now. So the idea is to make the personality flexible. to give the personality life and to allow the process of transformation to take place. When we don't have that flexibility, we will mask the suffering with something else and make layers and layers and layers. For example, we feel hurt. This is a very common mask. We feel hurt, we feel rejected. Then, instead of feeling the pain of being rejected and having that as a transforming power inside of us, we push that. Says, no, I'm not rejected. I am the one rejecting. I don't like that person. I am avoiding. They didn't call. I didn't call. It's a very common mask. Yeah? Instead of feeling abandoned, instead of feeling rejected by someone, we mask it. We pretend we feel something else. And having that, and then you have these obsessive thoughts. No, I hate that person, I'll never call that person, I don't care about that person. You think 20 times a day that you don't care about a person is a very clear dissonance. If you don't care about a person, why do you think about them 20,000 times? There's a billion other people. How much thoughts do you need for all the people you don't care about? So you need to continuously think, I don't care about that person, I don't care about that person, I don't care about that person, because you have to push the suffering of, I'm rejected, I'm rejected, I'm rejected. You have to push that aside. That's how you actually put it. And that's why it's so difficult to stop the mind, because the mind is constantly buffering away suffering. It's constantly pushing suffering away. So what we do, we become flexible. We get real. I really care about that person. That person doesn't love me and doesn't want to be with me. Oh man, that hurts. That really, really hurts. You let it in and you allow yourself to be transformed. And you allow the attachments to fall out. And you will be born detached if you let the suffering come in and come out. Also let it go in the end. You accept the suffering and the process of transformation that it comes, and instead of avoiding the experience of suffering, you become hyper-conscious, hyper-attentive towards it. Oh, there is a storm, let me run straight towards it. Exactly, that's the Tantric attitude. Normally we hit our head and we do Why? Because it hurts, and we cover the sensation of pain with whatever you want to call that, the sensation of rubbing. Yeah, whatever you like to call that. So you hit your head, meditate on the pain. It pulsates. Excellent. Very good. So you got a very hard message from your lover. Put the phone down and feel the pain. Feel the suffering straight to it. Become hyper-lucid, very attentive. As Blandine will say, feel it in the body and so forth. And then the process, the suffering will transform you. And the process sucks. It's difficult, it's painful. It's not going to be blissful from moment 1. From moment Z, from Omega, it's nice. Alpha is not nice. But you just stay there and you let it transform you. In the schools of Gurdjieff, they were speaking about 2 processes. Yeah, there's this whole idea of transforming suffering in the schools of Gurdjieff has a very big importance. You awaken your soul, your eternal astral body, as they call it there, by transforming suffering. Life gives you blows and difficulties. You take that suffering, so raw energy, and you turn it into an immortal soul. You become hyper-conscious, hyper-awake through suffering. Suffering is set out to wake up manifestation. If it wasn't for suffering, according to Gurdjieff, manifestation would fall asleep. And he himself, the great initiate Gurdjieff, he was walking in the Gobi Desert, he was very sick and so forth, and he felt desperate. He felt almost like he wants to kill himself. He says, look, I can, from a distance of kilometers, with the power of my mind, kill a yak or an elephant. I can paralyze an elephant with the power of my mind. I possess numerous amounts of paranormal power. I have amazing control over my mind, amazing vital energy. He could go 60 days without sleeping. He was just a machine of spiritual power, tremendous. And yet, he said, I can't remember myself. My consciousness is flickering, is not continuous. I'm half asleep. Half of the time I'm half asleep. And then he said, what I need to wake up is to create what he called voluntary suffering, or what we call in Tantra tapas. And he made a decision that he will not use his paranormal powers. And every time he would feel to use it, which would be basically all the time, because when you have these powers, you just want to use them all the time. Every time I want to use it, I will remember myself, because it's very difficult for me not to use it. And he eventually had his process of spiritual awakening, making that sacrifice. It is through this constant friction of suffering, of wanting to use these powers and not using it, that he woke up. And he brought to the world these two fundamental methods that can be found also in Tantra, literally dividing attention and remembering one's self. So in order to make the personality flexible, to bring the process of transformation, you look in a divided attention. You look at the suffering. Okay, here this part of my body really suffers, or this part of my being, these thoughts are really painful. And you look at yourself. You look at the suffering and you look at yourself. Yourself, this feeling of I, the observer, the consciousness which is looking at all of this. So you look at the observer and you look at the suffering. And if you look in that way, the process of transformation accelerates very much. This is a super practical tool. It works tremendously. Yeah, to integrate the other element, you remember yourself while you suffer. You remember yourself as consciousness, as a soul. You become attentive to this feeling of I, me, and the suffering. You look at the suffering and you ask who is looking. I see the suffering and I'm looking at the observer. It takes a little bit of practice, but if you follow these indications, you will have amazing experiences. And you use as a center the heart. In the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra, to take from the Tantric tradition, one of the meditations there is a meditation in which, in the state of great pain, of great suffering, great distress, great fear, great anger, whatever that makes you suffer, you allow the emotion to manifest fully and you center in your heart, which is basically the same thing. You divide attention and you are centered in the heart, in the spiritual heart, and you become simultaneously quiet and centered in the heart and also the storm. You're also the storm of fear, the storm of anger, the storm of sadness, and the heart. And in this way, the suffering, instead of taking a year to transform you, can transform you in a minute, or in 10 minutes, or in a few hours. And the process of transformation can become utterly blissful from a certain moment, because you die and you get reborn. To give you an example from my life, when I was doing my yoga teacher training course, I was always asking the questions. I was asking most of the questions to my teacher, and the affection and validation of my teacher was everything for me, and everybody else in the class would validate me and appreciate me for all the questions, and I felt very important and very proud that I'm asking so much good questions and I'm getting smiles and long answers from my teacher. So from this state of pride, which again, that's a mistake and it needs to be corrected, I asked a very dumb question. Basically, the lecture was how to increase aspiration. My teacher spoke an hour about how to increase aspiration. And then I asked, my question was how to increase aspiration. And he looked at me and he said, what? And then I said, how to increase aspiration? With the finger. At least metaphorically, I don't remember. It was some years ago. And then he looked at me and said, what a stupid question. Was this not the subject of the class? And then I realized, yes, it was the subject of the class. And everybody laughed for a while. And I remember the feeling of humiliation. And for some grace, I sat there, I was in a meditation posture, And I just observed what happens when I get humiliated. Everybody were laughing, my girlfriend, my teacher, all my friends. And I remember this feeling of contraction. Yeah, I can normally feel my aura a few meters. And then it just got smaller and 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 smaller. And then it all entered my heart. And I felt it was quite agonizing. It was difficult. It was painful. And I felt trapped in all that, but also very curious and neutral. And then in the heart, it turned into light. And I felt very, very small, but luminous. And it was self-content. It had my own happiness. Nobody validated me. People made fun of me. But there was a light there, a joy.
I'm a duck.
I'm a duck. I'm not a peacock. How nice it is to be a duck. And it had such a light into it. Yeah, so the process was very painful. It was actual suffering, 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 condensed. And they were still laughing and looking at me and laughing. Possibly pointing the finger. But inside all of that, there was the bliss of the soul, because the whole process could happen fully. And we can hear more about the mechanisms and the practical part of it.
Hey guys, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content on spirituality, Tantra and more.
And if you want to sign up for our online classes or for our retreats, you can see our website on the description below.